This is Support is Sexy, episode 122, with author and mentor, Lisa Dad. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm Elayne, and I'm so excited to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And today on this episode, we have Lisa Dad. And I got to tell you, I have fun with all of the episodes. All of the women are wonderful. But I really had fun talking to Lisa because we spoke about, among many other things, this idea of finding your fabulous, which is what her book is called, Finding Fabulous, but also this idea of being able to play in the gray. Play in that space of ambiguity, or play in your business or the things that you're creating. It doesn't have to be too serious or too painful in order for you to have fun. And that's one of the things that Lisa learned throughout her career. She worked in corporate sales and marketing for 15 years. And then she decided to take the plunge and become an entrepreneur and to really find her fabulous and find her play. So on this episode, you'll learn from Lisa why you never really get over that feeling of being afraid, and that's okay. How to know when it's time to move on, and how to get over that quote unquote, you should be happy feeling. How to be grateful for the desire for change. I think that's very important. How to gauge whether your longing to do something else is temporary. Why you deserve to find your fabulous. How to give yourself permission to live a fabulous life. Permission is a big thing for a lot of us. Got to give yourself permission. Why you should have gratitude for the ambiguity in your life. Beware of whether you're using finances as a smokescreen. Be sure to listen out for her thoughts on that. The benefits of, as I mentioned, playing in the gray. 3 ways to redefine your life. How to move beyond imposter syndrome. The power of masterminds. And how to quiet your inner mean girl and tell her to flick off. So I know you're going to enjoy this episode full of great information and tons of advice. Be sure to go to supportissexypodcast.com so you can check out all of the links and the show notes for Lisa's episode. Go to the website, supportissexypodcast.com, search Lisa, and you'll see all of her information there. You're going to enjoy this. I know you will. So without further ado, Lisa Dad. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Now, first question. When did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Oh, did I fall in love with it? It's been a love-hate relationship.
Right. I understand.
Yes. I guess I first fell in love with it 4 years ago when I decided to leave the corporate world, and I started to realize all of the possibilities and the potentials that were in front of me if I stepped into this world of being an entrepreneur.
Where did you grow up? Did you grow up now in Toronto or Ontario?
I actually grew up in Niagara Falls, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, and then partially in Windsor, Ontario as well.
What was a young Lisa like?
Young Lisa, I guess you could say I was always very curious and adventuresome. I loved to be active. I was always out riding my bike, playing games and sports. You know, they called me a tomboy when I was a kid, although I don't like that expression now. It's probably accurate.
Were you an only child, or are you an only child?
No, I have a sister who's a couple of years older than me.
What would you say were some of your greatest influences growing up in Niagara Falls?
Some of my greatest influences, probably family definitely was influential for me, although most of them lived a couple hours away in Waterloo, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
But we were very close to family, and we went there very often. And then on top of that, my mother was a single mother, and not only did she, provide for us, she was also pretty adventuresome. She'd often throw us in the car, and we'd go off driving on adventures to different places and to visit different family members, and we were always sort of on the go.
What did you think, or who did you think you were going to be when you grew up? You know, so many of us have this. I'm going to be a whatever. I don't know. I don't even think kids say ballerina anymore. I feel like little girls now are like, I'm going to be president, and that's that. But, you know, there was a time when you used to think like ballerina, fireman, cop, or those kinds of things. What was it for you?
Yeah, I only know this because my mom kept a record of it from my early days, because for the longest time I was going to be a doctor. And that is what I remember the most. But when I look back on it, I said I was going to be a professional baseball player. I was going to be a nurse, a doctor, a policeman, I think. It sort of seemed to change every year.
And then what kind of path did you follow once you got out of school or high school? And did you go to college in Canada as well? Or did you go elsewhere? Or what is your plan after high school? What was your plan?
Yeah, I did. I had a plan that I was going to be a doctor. So I went to university. Yeah, I went to university and I started in science, just believing I'm going to do a science degree, then I'm going to go to medical school, and I was going to be an obstetrician gynecologist. That was my plan. And then I went into university and realized that I wanted to study more the science of people than of just microscopes and things like that. And I shifted into kinesiology, which is really a study more of movement, where you did anatomy and all of these things. And eventually I didn't actually get into medical school. So I decided to stick around, and I ended up doing a graduate degree.
And what was your graduate degree in?
It was in sports medicine. So it sort of combined my love of being active in sports along with my interest in helping people.
What was your vision, do you think, at that time? Did you have a plan? A lot of us didn't have a plan in college. I know I didn't. I was like, I like writing. I'm going to study English, and we'll see how it goes. So what was your vision for yourself?
I honestly, beyond getting into medical school, I didn't have much of a vision. Mm-hmm. So I found myself really, really lost when I didn't get into medical school. So I continued to sort of follow my interest going into graduate school, and sort of I always say I sort of fell into my career after graduate school. Into a profession I didn't even know existed up until that point.
And what was that profession? What did that become? Because then you entered corporate America, right?
I did. I entered corporate America in the pharmaceutical industry. And it was an interesting awakening, because I had for so many years wanted to be a doctor, and then I ended up working with physicians for 15 years. So it was interesting.
And then tell us about what it was like during that 15 years, because obviously, ultimately, you became an entrepreneur. That's why you're here with us. But what was that journey like during that 15 years when you first got into the business? Was it, into corporate America? Was it, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is something I'm going to do for the next however many years? Or did you always have that sort of entrepreneurial itch, as we call it?
I always had this underlying belief that I would do something else. So I was really just following where my life was leading me. And when it was fun and interesting, and I worked with some amazing people. That's why I stayed so long, is because the people were great. But with each, and I did very well in the corporate world. It was like every, few years I would get a promotion. But it seemed that with each and every promotion, I got less and less satisfied with what I was doing. And I kind of knew that someday I would go do something else. It's just that I had this feeling that I had to have it all figured out before I went after it.
Did you ever get over that feeling, or did you sort of do it afraid, as they say?
Oh, no, I didn't get over it.
Right.
I don't know if I'm over it today.
I was going to say, if you say yes, you're the only person I've ever spoken to in life that got over it. People kind of like, no, I still have it. I just keep it moving.
Yeah, no, the day that I decided, the day I was had a little epiphany in my kitchen. I write about it in my book. And, literally that day, I simultaneously had this thought of I needed to leave my corporate job, and I have no idea what I'm going to do, and it's going to be okay. Like all of those thoughts sort of hit me all at the same time. So it's like this sort of being petrified and excited all at the same time.
Totally know that feeling. That's me every day. Petrified and excited every day. Now, how did you get to that journey? Well, first of all, let's tell everyone the name of your book, Finding Fabulous.
Yes, paving the path between paycheck and passion.
Awesome.
And it is all about that journey of what that looks like when, it was a bit selfish when I wrote that book, because I wanted to understand, how do people walk away from the status quo, from a really successful career, and just leap into the unknown.
And how do people do that? And how did you do that? And it's interesting. It's a reflection of your wanting to study more about people, right?
It is, and I guess I never really thought of it that way, but I certainly exactly how the book came to be. I didn't plan on writing a book. Unlike you, I hadn't studied literature in school. I don't even think I took an English class in university. But I was on this journey myself to figure it out, and I started being really hyper curious. And so I started meeting all of these amazing individuals who had walked away from the status quo and were building new businesses and following passions. And I was just so curious. I said, this sounds like a lovely idea, but there's problems along the way, and there's stumbles and roadblocks, and like, how do you get through it? And what does that look like? And how do you measure success? And I asked all of these people these questions before I realized I need to put this in a book, not just for myself, but for other people.
And were these people other entrepreneurs, or is it a combination of mentors, or what kind of people did you sort of turn to in order to ask these questions?
Yeah, they all ended up becoming entrepreneurs in some way, shape, or form. So some of them have gone back and shifted their careers quite a bit. But at the time, a lot of them had stepped away. They had all been professionals or corporate individuals. So there were lawyers and doctors, business people, marketers, all different types of individuals. And they all had stepped away to chase their passions or find more meaning in their lives.
So going back to your journey when we talked about sort of having that itch, how does one sort of recognize that in themselves and not think it's necessarily, because as you mentioned, you were getting the promotions and getting the raises, which makes it more difficult to leave, right? It's like a great relationship and you don't know why you're just not happy. It doesn't matter that it's a great relationship, but you want to, move on to something else. So how does one recognize that moment or that thing or that need to move on in their work or to their, new business? And then what's the first step?
Yeah, I think the first recognition really is that deep dissatisfaction. And almost, I think for a lot of people, especially people that, grew up in my generation and got good jobs and get paid really well, it's that guilt of, you should be happy with what you have. People, how many people would die for your job? And so part of me had to get over the fact that I was also embracing and studying the gift of gratitude. And initially, I think I felt even more guilty because I thought I should be happier and I should be more grateful. But I started to realize that I was really grateful. I was grateful for the opportunity, grateful for the people I worked with, grateful for all of these things. But on a day-to-day basis, there was no joy in it for me anymore. I started to feel like I was having a lot of I call them out-of-body experiences, where you're in a meeting and there's part of you that's floating above the room going, what are we talking about? Why does it matter?
Right. Right.
It's almost like a separation from self a little bit.
Exactly.
And I don't want to get too woo-woo on you, but there's a feeling that you're looking out onto your life going, there's got to be more than this. And I think when you do that too many times, for me, it was constant over time. The only thing I would suggest to people is that, if you happen to be in a situation right now where things aren't comfortable at work because maybe you don't really like your boss or some situation happened, I think it's important that it's not a one-time thing that make you unhappy for a short little thing. I think this feeling, desire of needing to do something else is something that is continual over time in various circumstances with various people, that longing to do something else. I felt it even when I was happy in my job. Even at the happiest times in my job, I still felt like someday I'll go do something else. And so I think there's a little bit of a discernment people can make. It's like, on most parts, are you thrilled with what you do? Or is there this underlying constant, dissatisfaction? Right. Yes.
One of the things that you mentioned, I think, is so important to say and powerful, especially if someone is experiencing success but still feeling pulled in another direction, this idea of just be grateful for what you have. And then being able to give yourself permission to say, I am grateful for what I have, but I still would like something else. It's not necessarily something more, or let me know if you agree, but it's more like something else.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And I bring that up because I do believe that it's common that people have this sense of like, well, maybe I should just be happy that I'm lucky I have this, or I'm lucky I have that. It's that to say, not that you're ungrateful for it, but why can't we? That's why my book's called Finding Fabulous, because there were the people that I interviewed had good jobs and made good money and had good benefits and all of these things. But it was like life just wasn't fabulous. It wasn't amazing. And the thought is that we're not here to have just good enough, to settle, and why should we settle? Because I believe that when people really feel like their lives are amazing and fabulous, there's a halo effect and a contagious reaction that happens. When somebody walks in the room and they're a happy person, because you feel happier just being with them. And the reverse is true. The person who's just got a chip on their shoulder and they're miserable all the time. So I know that our energy, we can't keep everything at work. It doesn't work that way. It's a big part of our lives. And if that's causing us to be cranky at home, to snap at the people we love, or to not find joy in other things because we're constantly carrying this cloud of just unhappiness around with us, it has a bigger impact than just what we do for a living.
And how do we give ourselves permission to find our fabulous?
Well, maybe it's just as simple as that, is give yourself permission. That's the big word right there, because a lot of times I find the people that I've spoken to, and even myself, I describe it in my book. I say, it's like I was waiting for the magical purpose fairy to come and sprinkle dust on me, to say, now you're granted that, you're allowed to go and find your fabulous. It's like nobody's coming to do that for you. Nobody. So whoever's sitting there waiting for some magical, ring on the doorbell or phone call to say, oh, now it's your time, it's probably not going to come. And in fact, a lot of the people that I interviewed, they waited until something smacked them upside the head. I mean, there were a woman I spoke to had a life-threatening brain bleed. Another was in a car accident. Another had a major divorce. It's like waiting till something bad happens to say, wait a second, I deserve better. And we don't have to wait for the bad. We can just decide ourselves that, you know what, life can be better. And I'm gonna act toward that intention.
Right. And I think, too, going back to what you said about gratitude and this thing of I should be grateful for what I already have, I'm paraphrasing, but also in thinking about it, too, is you can be grateful for your other gifts as well. Like the thing that's pulling on you is a part of you also, likely. It's not that you're ungrateful for what you have, but you can be grateful and see it that way of this other thing that you can potentially do or develop or grow into.
I love that you said that, because there's something that has come up for me in terms of gratitude, probably over the last few months, is I find a lot of times with entrepreneurism that we are in a space of ambiguity, and ambiguity can be frustrating. But recently I've started to really have great gratitude for the ambiguity in my life, because what I've seen over the past few years is that when I have a lot of ambiguity, it also causes me to be more curious and to go seeking and to go look at new possibilities. And so I said, why am I struggling with ambiguity when I could really embrace it? Because it is the one thing that keeps me going and moves me forward. So you're right. We can look at gratitude in many different ways, and we can be grateful for things that show up. But be grateful in a way that allows us to move forward, not feel guilty. Right? I guess that's the choice.
Right. And ambiguity, or helping people sort of embrace, as you said, the ambiguity is something that you do through your business, the business that you have now, right?
I do, exactly. So it's definitely something I want to have gratitude for rather than to struggle with on my own, because you're right, it does actually also give me work and bring me people that I can serve in that way, because ambiguity can be scary for people.
So tell us about the kind of work that you eventually moved into after your corporate position. What do you offer to the world now?
So the first thing I did was write the book. And so it took me a while because I was doing some consulting along the way and sort of figuring it out. And the book really provided that clarity for me. So it was a bit cathartic as well. So now I write and I speak, but I also consult and sort of, I call it mentoring more than coaching, but I work with individuals that are in that transformation phase, whether they haven't made a leap yet or whether they've made it and they're struggling to really gain some traction. I help people really embrace that ambiguity and see new possibilities for their life. A lot of times it starts with a job or career, but really what it quickly moves into is deciding how to design a life that's fabulous, and having what you do for a living be just part of it. So now you are working in corporate, almost said corporate America, but it's not corporate America, right? Corporate. Exactly. Well, it is really, because my corporation was American. So
okay, there you go. So, but in making that transition, just from a practical standpoint, because did you write the book while you were still at your full-time job?
I didn't. No.
Oh,
No.
okay. So,
I don't always suggest this for people to leave the way I did. I was able to leave because my company was doing some major downsizings, and
that's
so
what
I
I
was
was
able.
going to ask. That's
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you for sharing that, because I was going to ask that. What kind of things did you have in place before you made that leap? Because I think, as we mentioned about this sort of earlier pressure, whether it's for success or I should be happy, the other part is, oh, everyone else says that they just left their job, and not that you were
Yeah.
saying that, but there's sort of this myth
Well,
out there.
yeah, and I think it. First of all, the biggest thing I'm going to say to the listeners out there is, look, if you believe that you can't do it because of any one reason, then you'll be right. It's like whether you're looking for an excuse or you're looking for a way, you're going to find it. So you'll find in my book that some people left and had lots of money, so they didn't need to get a job right away, whereas some others had to plan. One of the gentlemen had 4 kids at home and a stay-at-home wife, so he planned an 18-month exit strategy. So there's a variance in between. And so what I say to people is that your situation doesn't prevent you from doing this. It just may alter your way in which you do it, or the path in which you do it. Every single person, there's an initial step they can take no matter where they are.
What should people consider in those situations when they do want to make that transition? Is it basically what you just said about think about your own situation and what makes the most sense for you?
Yeah, I think you definitely, if you can't afford to just quit your job and have 6 months off, which a lot of people can't, then it's a good idea to figure some things out before you go. So I left not having any clue what I was going to do, and I was able to because I had a bit of a financial buffer. Mm-hmm. But it does take some time. And so if you don't have a financial buffer, I would say part of it is really starting to ask yourself the questions and getting clear on some of you don't have to know exactly what you're going to do, but start asking the questions about what interests you and what fascinates you and what you're curious about. And definitely, I go through some of this in my book as well. There's definitely a financial picture to it, although I do believe it's one of the biggest smoke screens people use to not do it.
Right.
But there's ways to look at your obligations and looking at your debts and looking at what you have in your life and that you need and things that you don't need. So it's a little more planning. That's all.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is your definition of playing in the gray? I saw that phrase on your website, and I absolutely love that. How do you play in the gray?
This came one day when my sister asked me if I was working or playing, and I couldn't really answer her because it was kind of a combination of both.
The answer was just, yep.
Yeah, exactly. I said, yeah, I think that's what I said was yes. But I love this idea of blurring the lines between work and play. And I used to get frustrated again when people would ask me, what is it that you do? I don't understand it. And now I embrace it. I thought that's good. I play in this gray area that people don't know when I'm working or playing. If I'm creating a fun video, I'm out in California and I'm creating some fun video on Facebook and I'm, playing with the dog in the ocean, it may look like I'm just playing. And yet I get amazing insights and ideas for writing. When I'm in that space, it flows. And so it's part of my creative process. So playing is part of my creative process. My creative process leads to me writing books and creating products that will help other people. So this gray. It's gray because am I playing or am I working? I'm kind of doing both, right?
I love that. I'm going to embrace that. I totally love that because sometimes it feels like play, and even that can sometimes cause us guilt. Like, oh, I'm not being serious. This should be hard, or this should be. What would it look like if it were easy, if it felt good, if it were playful? I love that. Play in the gray. You and Leo. Leo is your dog, right?
Leo is my dog, and he's great inspiration because he reminds me to go out and play. And honestly, usually what happens when I'm hiking with him is all of a sudden I'll be able to make an entire speech that I could do on stage, or I could, if I know I've got an event coming up where I'm speaking, I just go for a walk with my dog, and all of the ducks seem to align in a row while I'm walking. So again, it's like, am I playing or am I working?
It's like a form of your meditation, sort of.
It is, and it works really well for me. So I love playing in that space, and I encourage other people to do the same. And I'm even creating a new program in January that will do that for people. So they can take some of the hard work of the thinking about how to play in the gray out of it.
Please let me know about that program. One, I'll add it to your page so everyone can find it, but I will also sign up because I want to play in the gray. That was I have to tell you, just hearing that I love the phrase already. I was drawn to it. Obviously, it resonated with me. But then hearing you explain it made me even more excited about it. Sort of, oh, this is why this is so fun. Yes, I'm working, but there's moments of play within it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very big on experiential learning. And so I think if the more we can find new ways to play, the other thing it does is it creates new perceptions for us. And so sometimes we often can see things the same way. And it's like, well, you just twist it a little bit, make it a little twisted, have a little fun with it. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, this can be different and it can look different. So
right. Excellent. Now you specialize in lifestyle and career redesign. What would you say are your top 3 tactics for someone wanting to sort of redesign their lives?
The first tactic I would say is awareness. It's just spending some time and energy and effort, and I do this with people as well, to really get clear on what it is we like and why we like it, and what we don't like and why. Because often people say, well, I don't like my job. Well, why? And then they say, my boss. But how often do we peel back the layers to say, you know what? The truth is, I just don't get to express myself fully. Mm-hmm. I want to be really creative and I want to have some room. So I think it's good to you can do that whether you're working or not working, is start to really play. This is where you can play as well, joining different activities and clubs and stuff, but get really clear on what fills you up with energy, what lights you up, what gets you excited, what gets you curious. So awareness is the first thing. Mm-hmm. I think the next thing is really deciding what you're willing to do for it. So, this life, as an entrepreneur, this life isn't always easy, right. But it does. I love the quote. There's a quote, I'll say it wrong, but there's a quote that says, entrepreneurs will live a short time like
most people won't.
So that they can live the lifetime like most people can't.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you for filling that in.
Something like that.
But I think that it speaks to this idea of willingness, right? And so again, I speak about this in the book about how we need to be willing to invest in where we want to go. So it's not enough to just say, yeah, well, I want to drive a Maserati. Okay, mm-hmm. Are you willing to do whatever it's going to take to get you a Maserati? Well, no, not really. I just kind of want it. I'm not really committed to it. So if you can switch your wants into committed, first of all, that will show you what you're willing to do. I think it's a really big step to say, maybe I'm willing to downsize and live in a smaller house or even go to an apartment so that I would have enough money to start my business. That's a big statement of willingness. Mm-hmm. So I think once you're clear and aware on some of the things that you want in your life, get clear on what you're willing to do. And that doesn't mean giving up things necessarily. I think you think of it as an investment. And as you get even clearer, as you go down your path, I promise you'll be even more willing to do what it takes. And then the last one's a big one, and it's not as easy, but there is a big piece to this entrepreneurial journey that requires you to get really clear on whether you believe you're worthy of having it. Mm. Worthiness is really big.
Right. And imposter syndrome too.
Yeah, imposter syndrome, right? As you go down and you think, oh, wow, I have huge dreams and I really want to serve people in a big way. And then this worthiness giant can come and say, who are you to do that?
Right.
And so when you're in a corporation, it's a little different because you've got, CEOs saying you're granted this title and this salary. So clearly you're worthy. We believe in you. Go do it. But when you're in an entrepreneurial world, no one is saying that to you. No one is saying we grant you permission to make $1 million this year or whatever it is. Right. So you have to have that worthiness yourself. You get to be your own CEO that says you get a promotion because I believe in you. And sometimes that has to come. Although this is why I love your podcast, because you talk about support and how we don't do it alone. Right. So I think worthiness, it starts individually, but you can build a support team around you to really solidify that.
Those are great tactics. Thank you. How do you personally sort of get through those moments of, if you experience them, that is, of either unworthiness or I don't deserve this or who am I to dream this big? What have been some of your personal ways of doing that?
The best way has been finding a like-minded tribe that that can relate. And so I live in California part-time because I love the energy out there, and I have been able to to find a tribe of individuals that really support me and what I'm doing and sort of understand it a little bit better. And even this morning, so you say, if I still feel that, I think there's always a bit of a roller coaster when you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And even this morning, I was having a little bit of self-doubts about something, and I have a weekly mastermind call with 2 other individuals. And every time I get off the phone with them, I feel so good and renewed and recharged. But whatever it is that came up in the call, I've got these people that are supporting me, that understand what I'm going through, that remind me of who I am and what I'm capable of, and it's big.
Masterminds are so powerful. I try to tell us, I did my first one, or participated, I should say, in my first one this past year, and it just does wonders. One, because I don't know if you do your call the same time or same day each week.
We
but
do.
Just, the consistency and knowing that it's coming and the schedule, and you can allow yourself to feel whatever you need to feel in between time or going through things. And I know for me, it's sort of like, well, I know I think our call was Monday. I can't remember the day now. But whatever day, I'll be able to go over this with the group, and just knowing that group was there, or those people were there, is a big lift. And you being able to share your experiences and then hearing back from them, one, that most of them go through the same thing, but then advice and any other inspiration they could give you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And consistency is big. I was
Right.
part of a group once, and we were meeting once a month, but then if something came up and you couldn't go, then it would be 2 months. And
Right.
now I've switched to my steady one, and is a Tuesday morning every single week. And it's great because that consistency really helps. And again, if I miss it once or twice, it's not as big of a deal because they're there for me. But yeah, definitely the support people around me.
What does your support network overall look like? I know you have your mastermind group, but just what supports you in having your fabulous life?
Quite a few things. I believe in a tapestry of support, and that you need support at different levels and for different things. And so, again, I talk about this a lot in my book. I've got a whole chapter on it because the further I got into interviewing individuals, I started to see a pattern of who found the most happiness and success seemed to be the people that had the biggest support systems. So for myself, I've got a fabulous family. They support me in whatever I do, and I can go to them. They're my soft place to land. But none of them, I shouldn't say none of them, very few of them are entrepreneurs, and sometimes they don't really understand what I'm doing. So although I get some support from them, I also need more. So then I've got a group, through different programs I've signed up for, different conferences that I've attended. I did a transformational training group. So my strategy had always been to go be in presence of other people that are doing similar things. And that's always served me really well because that's where I found the members for my mastermind group that I was telling you about. This is also where I've been able to find people that, when I was trying to write my book, I signed up for an elite, writing group where there was 12 of us, and they put us in accountability groups. And so those people knew exactly what I was going through when I was writing my book, which was different support than someone else who was an entrepreneur but wasn't writing a book. So I call it a tapestry because I think we can weave into our lives people that give us support in different ways. Who's going to lift you up, and who's going to just even go to the movies with you when you need a break, right? So that's support too. Sometimes you need a girlfriend who you can just sit down and have a glass of wine with and not talk about business.
Who knows nothing about or who cares nothing about your business. They care about you. Right.
So support to me comes in different ways. So it's that girlfriend who'll sit down with the wine and not talk about anything except maybe my dog
right.
and my vacation, and then I got someone else who knows what it's like to write a book. And I got other people that know what it's like to launch a program and try to get clients into it. I've got my family members who literally, again, don't care other than, are you fed and happy and
right. Right.
So yeah, I think that's my own personal strategy, and what I suggest to other people is weaving this tapestry of support at different levels and in different areas of your life so that you've got this net. It's like a safety net you're building underneath you.
Have you ever had a point so far in the journey? How long has it been since you left the corporate job?
It's been 4 years.
It's been 4 years. Holy cow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I thought it was a shorter time. That's amazing. Congratulations. Have you ever had any moments though throughout the journey, maybe when you first left, where you thought about, you have to find the next job or the next thing, or did you know that you were done and moving into this next phase of your life?
When I left corporate, I had given myself a timeline. I had said, if I don't figure out what I want to do in 6 months, then I'll go back. Mm-hmm. And 6 months into my journey, I knew one thing for certain, that I wasn't going back. I didn't have all the answers figured out. I had just decided, I think, to write my book maybe, and there were still things I didn't know, but I had done enough work and seen enough options and possibilities that I knew I wasn't going to go back. And that's not to say that throughout the rest of the journey, I didn't have times where I questioned, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? But for me, it's never been about going back to what I was doing. I just know that's not the space for me. There's just too many options out here. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it totally does.
Yeah, there's still moments when usually it's when I'm thinking too far in the future, and I think, I really want to do this big thing, and what's it going to look like? And if I can just see the end goal, and I'm looking again too far in the future, it's sometimes you can get tripped up as to what you need to do today in the moment.
Right.
So those are the times I think when I have to reel myself back and remind myself I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and these things evolve over time. Even the book, there was a point when I thought, if I don't sit down and finish this book, it's never going to get written, because I was looking too far into the future.
And when we look so far into the future, you can get overwhelmed just by, as you said, especially if you're someone who has these big dreams, which most of us do, or at least the listeners of this show, and you and I certainly do, have these big dreams and things we want to accomplish or experience. You can get overwhelmed focusing on that, as opposed to looking at, as Oprah says, what's the next right move? Mm-hmm. What am I supposed to do from this point? What's the next right move? And then you keep making the next, hopefully, right move as you go along the journey. It doesn't feel, like it's knocking you back on your feet, so to speak.
I couldn't agree more. I love it. I love the way she puts that too. All you have to think of is, what's your next right move? It's beautiful.
Right, which is really all you can do. But so we have these minds, they curse us with this ability to dream about the future. What would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Oh, wow. Good question. What has it taught me about myself? Well, it's taught me to be, I don't know if I'm very good at it, but I will tell you, it's teaching me to be kinder to myself. And I remember that more often. It's odd, but I remember it more when I'm giving that advice to somebody else, and it's like I'm supposed to be saying it to myself as well. Because I think I know I'm my worst critic. And there's this little inner mean girl sometimes nattering in my ear. And sometimes I just say, if I could be a little bit kinder to myself, I'll actually do what I need to do. If I'm worried about my inner mean girl criticizing what I'm doing, then I'm never going to move forward, because it's like, why would I want to? It's like, I'm afraid my little inner mean girl is going to say, that's not good enough.
Right.
So I've learned as I go along to very quickly, recognize when my inner mean girl is nattering at me. And I think I even put that on my Instagram, flick off your inner mean girl. It's the best. That. Yeah, I wrote it down as the best productivity hack there is, because you can't move forward on a project, you can't give it your best when your inner mean girl is nattering in your ear. So be kinder to yourself. Know that this is a journey, that it's a progress, that things don't have to be perfect from day one, and then just move forward. Go back to that next right move that we just talked about.
Excellent. In closing, if you think over your life and career, and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be, and what would you say?
Wow, you're going to make me emotional, because normally I would probably have said my mother, because she was a single mother and taught me so much. And yet on Saturday, we had a celebration for my grandmother's life. She just passed away a week ago. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing that came out of that was in doing the dedication for her service, I started going through all of the things that she accomplished in her life and how many things she could do that I just took for granted because she was just my Nana who could do everything. I mean, the woman could build a house from scratch, and she did too. So she could do so many things. And as I was going through all of these things that she used to do, and there's many, it would take up your whole show for me to list them all. I started to realize that no wonder I grew up with this attitude that I could do whatever I put my mind to. And it never even crossed my mind that that was different because I was a woman. Because I would watch my grandmother up, literally on a pitched A-frame roof, shingling a roof. And I was a young child, so it never dawned on me that women can't do this. As a woman, that we're a lesser, race in any way. So I would say that it was probably a lot of watching my grandmother just master things, and with great humility, as well. That she just was able to do things and didn't need to brag about that. She just did them so beautifully. So thank my Nana.
Oh, Nana, we love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I love that too, just her modeling this you can do anything behavior.
And support too. You're all about support is sexy. My grandmother supported us in ways that I can't even describe to you, whether she agreed with what we were doing or not. I talked about this quick little story where I was in Cuba and I wanted to jump out of an airplane, go skydiving, and I didn't have enough cash to pay them. And my grandmother's running around looking for cash for me when she didn't want me to go. She was petrified, but she didn't say that. She just ran around and found the money so that she could support what I wanted to do.
Oh, because she knew it was something that you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. Never once did she say, don't do it.
Right.
She just was like, you want to do it? Awesome. I can help you. So she was a true embodiment of support. She supported her family and absolutely everything. And so, I love that your podcast is all about support.
Excellent. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here, and tell us how we can support you. Give everyone your website and social media I'll have links to everything, of course, but where we can go to find you.
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to lisadad.com, and it's lisadad.com. It's probably the easiest way. That's my website. And you can, if you're looking for my book, you can also type Lisa Dad into Amazon. And if you don't remember the full title of my book, Finding Fabulous, you can go there as well.
Excellent. And on social media, you're Lisa Dad also?
Yes, I'm pretty much Lisa Dad everywhere. I was able to snag my name.
Yeah, me too. That's the one thing when I was younger, like, oh, why is my last name Fluker? I don't know. Now it's like, oh, this is perfect. I got it everywhere. Elayne Fluker. Excellent. Lisa, thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate you. Before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners?
Parting piece of advice is believe that you are more capable, that you're smarter, that you are more fabulous than you believe you are, and that you are worth every ounce of fabulous that you can find in life.
Excellent. Lisa Dad, hold on one second for me.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And the challenge for you is to take at least one thing. You can always do more than one thing, but take at least one thing and incorporate that into your business today. Take action today. Also, be sure to go to supportissexypodcast.com to get more information about this episode and to see previous interviews that I've done with other fantastic women entrepreneurs. And while you're there, be sure to go to the free resources button so you can see what kind of resources I'm offering to you guys. Right now, it is a 3-part audio training on how to make brave decisions. The decision to do something is sometimes scarier than even the actual doing. So go to supportissexypodcast.com, go to the top, click free resources, and download that free audio training. All right, so thank you so much again for listening. Until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.